Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rebecca, otherwise known as Hypnot Hooray Online, and today we'll be talking about knitting flops, or more specifically, summer tops and tanks that I've knit but I don't wear. So I wanted to start thinking about summer project knitting and start to get into that headspace now. And I thought a good place to start would be to just reflect on previous summer projects or summer knits that I've made before, and ones that I have knit and I love, and ones that I have knit and I don't love. So this is going to be, I think, a two-part series just to split it up. I'm going to start with this video today, which is the knitting flops, and then I'm still thinking of the working title for the next one, but I think I'll call them knitting faves, summer tanks. To be honest, and I'll say it right now as a disclaimer, there's not that many knit tanks that I've knit that I actually love. Most of them I have neutral feelings about and that I don't really like, so there's not going to be that many, but I thought in that second part of the video I'll talk about those ones, and then also fibers and yarn that I want to knit with, and maybe just have a bit more of a reflection on what I think about summer knitting now. But in this one we're going to be talking about flops. So I feel like there's a mix of reasons why I may see one of these projects as a flop. It may be because of the yarn composition, because of the fit, the gauge of the project. So there's going to be a mix of reasons and reflections. I have all of my notes written down here, and it's going to include all of the tanks or most of my knitting project history, I guess. I didn't really knit a lot of tanks in 2020 or 2021, so most of these are going to be from the past 2 years, but there's quite a few projects where, yeah, I don't really love them, and I feel like I don't really talk about this a lot. I mean, I've started my YouTube channel about 6 months ago or 8 months ago now, and so there hasn't really been a time where I've talked about my summer knits yet, because I haven't been on YouTube in the summer months yet. But I feel like I tend to not talk about that on my Instagram. Like when I first finish a project, I'll be really excited about it, and of course I will wear it as soon as I cast it off, and I really like wearing it for those first few weeks. But then I find after that, if there's a particular reason why I don't like that project, I never wear it. Like some of these projects I've worn 3 or 4 times right after I've cast it off, but then after that it kind of just sits on my hobby shelf and I don't wear it. And I don't really know what I'm going to do with these projects yet. I don't know if I'm going to sell them, trade them, maybe donate them, maybe even frog them for the yarn. But for now, I'm just focusing on why I didn't like them, why I don't wear them, and then hopefully it can inform my summer knitting in the future. So let's just get started with sharing some of the flops. I have the projects off to the side. Some of them I don't have here at my apartment, or I frogged them so they don't exist anymore, but the ones that I do, I will pull out and show you. And then I also have my notes here off to the side. So the first one is the It's a Wrap top by Anne Catherine, and this was a test knit that I did in 2022. I knit the size extra small and normal length, which has additional length underneath the waist detail. So in this top there's 2 different versions. There's a more cropped length that just has the wrap at the top here, and then the waist tie or waist detail, and then there's one where you pick up stitches and then you add another, I guess, wrap panel underneath that waist detail. And at the time when I saw this test haul, I really loved both versions, but I had enough yarn to do the normal length, and I figured that I might just wear it more if there was a little bit more length. It's a little bit more versatile to wear with like higher waisted pants or trousers, skirts, whereas the wrap top, the crop one, I just found that I might not wear it as much. So that's why I went with that normal length. I used Premier Cotton Fair, which is a acrylic and cotton blend. I do really like that yarn for summer garments, and I've knit my Marseille sweater, so even for sweater garments, I think it's a pretty nice solid yarn. And I had to size down to 3mm needles to achieve gauge on this project, so a bit of a tighter gauge. And with this project, it's a flop because of the fit. So I do really like the yarn, but I find that the shape of the top is kind of strange for me. I feel like it could be my body proportions, I have a pretty straight frame or straight torso. Like I have a quite small bust. My waist is kind of the same measurement as my bust, and then even with my hips, there's not a lot of discrepancy, I guess. And so I think this top may have fit better if I had a larger bust. There is bust darts. Hi, so sorry, just a quick correction. There are actually no bust dart increases in the pattern. They are waist decreases. Yes, so sorry, I misremembered the pattern. I still think though that they contributed to the overall fit issues that I have with this top that I'm going to describe. But yes, they're not bust darts. I found that it ended up being very gapey. So the wrap is very loose at the top, especially at the front. And then at the waist, it's really tight. So it's very loose at the top and it's very tight at the bottom. So it's just a very strange silhouette. In pictures, I think I was really happy with the finished object pictures and when I first finished the garment, but I realized that as soon as I move around, like walk around or just even sit down, the wrap just kind of fully opens up, and so it kind of reveals a lot. I know I could put a snap button there, but I feel like even then it would just like create a little rippling here. It wouldn't be that nice. I could wear it like a top or camisole underneath, but I really like the look of this wrap top with nothing under it, just bare, and so I feel like I wouldn't even wear it like that. So unfortunately this project was a flop. I also found that, to be honest, the knitting process to be not that pleasant with this top. There is a lot of I-cord and applied I-cord on this top. So I think if you do like the fit and you think it'll work well with your proportions, if you like it, just be warned that there's going to be a lot of I-cord. There's the I-cord ties at the side, there's the I-cord straps here, and then there's applied I-cord all the way around the top, at the top and the bottom, along the underarm, just a lot of I-cord. And then there's a double knitted waist detail. That's the tie that's around the waist on both the crop length and the normal length. So all of that together, there's a lot of I-cord and double knitting, so it is a little bit more of a process knit as well. And I think that the top looks stunning on a lot of the testers that also made this top, but it just didn't work out for me. So just if you want to knit it, just also be warned about the process as well. The next top is the Nellie top by Spectacle Streak, and this is a top that I knit in 2022. I knit the size extra small and I use 4mm needles. Again, this is the second top where I don't have the project. The first one, if I didn't mention, it's at my parents' place. I still have it. I'm just not sure what I want to do with it yet. The Nellie top, I frogged. I don't like the yarn that I used. So I use Lion brand Trubu, which is a 100% rayon from bamboo yarn. This was actually the second time that I used this yarn. So one of my first knitting projects that I shared on my Knitstagram when I created my Knitstagram was the Peacock Tee by Len Home Samso, I believe is their name. So I first knit that Peacock Tee with the Lion brand Trubu, and that is a lace yoke t-shirt. And I really liked using the yarn to create that lace motif. I really like the knitting experience, honestly, of Trubu. It's very smooth, but the weight of the rayon just totally stretches out afterwards. I wore that Peacock Tee maybe 2 or 3 times before the lace motif had fully stretched out. The sleeves were so long and loose under the arm. So that was quite upsetting because I had put in quite a bit of time into the Peacock Tee. So I frogged that and I thought I'll still try to use this yarn for something else. And I saw the Nellie top and I thought maybe this could work well. It was still when I was a pretty new knitter as well, and I didn't realize how much garter stitch can also tend to stretch. And so I used this Lion brand Trubu for this top, and unfortunately the same thing happened again, where I knit this top and then after wearing it a few times, it just totally stretched out. And when the garter stitch fabric stretched out, the garter stitch wasn't very even anymore. And it ended up being also kind of loose as well, like a looser, thinner gauge. So I was worried that the more that I wore it, the more it would stretch out. So I just stopped wearing it. I really like this Nellie top pattern. I think it's a really interesting construction, so I would totally knit it again with a more elastic yarn, like maybe a merino or cotton merino blend. The way that the Nellie top is constructed, it's knit flat. You first knit the back panel flat, and then you work some shaping for the armholes, and then you work the two I-cord straps here. It's all in one piece, which is really interesting. So you work those two I-cord straps, and then you cast on stitches for the front panel, then you work some shaping to shape that armhole, and then you knit the front panel flat, and then you seam the sides together at the end. So I think it's a really enjoyable, pretty portable project. So I will consider knitting it again, but just not with Trubu. And to be honest, I wouldn't recommend Trubu yarn. I know Knits by Mandy, I can't remember what top she knit from it as well, but she also had a very similar experience, I want to say. So yeah, I don't know. I just don't really like the yarn, especially for garments. I think because of the drape though, it's a very silky fabric or finished fabric though. So I'm thinking that the yarn could maybe work, at least the way that I would use it in the future if I were to work with it again. I don't know if I would, but maybe like a bandana or like a headscarf, like a head ribbon scarf kind of thing. I'll put some pictures of what I'm thinking this could work with, or maybe even a scrunchie. Because it has such a nice sheen and it's so silky, I feel like it would be a nice texture for the hair, to not add a lot of frizz if you wanted to do hair accessories. But other than that, I personally can't think of any other projects that I would use this yarn for. And now moving on to ones that I have here. So the first one is my June top by Petite Knit. And this is a top that I knit in 2022. Right when it first came out, I think within the first few weeks of it being released, when she had first posted about this design, I was so hooked. I was like, yes, as soon as it's released, I'm totally going to knit that. So I knit the size extra small, and I used the very infamous shade of Knitting for Olive Merino in the shade Dusty Artichoke. So this is a top that has a little bit of a higher front, and then the back has more of a scoop neck at the back. And I was really attracted to this design because a big selling feature was that it is bra friendly. And in my personal experience, I don't think that this top is bra friendly. When I wear it, I don't know what it is, maybe because it has a deeper armhole, like the strap is a little bit loose, but whenever I wear it, I can fix it so it covers my bra straps, but throughout the day, or not even throughout the day, even within a few minutes, you can just see my bra strap again, because this strap will slide over or it'll even like fall off my shoulder. And I knit it to the proportions of the pattern, so yeah, I find that the straps are a little bit too long, so I don't really wear this top very much because I don't like how the straps always fall. And I don't like how you can see my bra strap, so I'll wear a strapless bra with it, which to be honest isn't really ideal. So I don't really wear this. I'm also realizing that I don't really like the deeper scoop neckline on me. So this one isn't too deep at the front, but I just prefer a little bit of a higher neckline. And also at the back, it's lower as well, which it does cover the back strap of my bra, but I just don't really like having such a deep cut at the back either. So I just don't really wear this top. I don't really know. I really like this yarn. I really want to use the Knitting for Olive Dusty Artichoke again, so I'm considering frogging this piece for the yarn. But similar to the It's a Wrap top, there is a ton of I-cord that you have to do around this top. So around the armhole, around the front, and at the back, this is all one I-cord as well, or one applied I-cord. You also do an I-cord cast off at the bottom. So there's a lot of I-cord that I would have to unpick before I could even frog this piece. So I don't really know if it's worth it, to be honest. Maybe there's someone else that would really like this top, so I might trade it as well, because it's a really nice yarn, Knitting for Olive Merino. So yeah, haven't fully decided, but this one is kind of a flop. I wouldn't really knit it again because of the fit. The next top is the Silene top by Emma's knits. This is a test knit that I did for Emma last year in 2023. I knit the size small with the thin I-cord straps, and then also, if you can tell, the waist shaping, there's a bit of a taper to the bottom. And I really like this pattern. I think the stitch pattern is really fun to work up, and I really like how it looks. It's this triangular stitch with knits and purls. I really like that, but the reason why I don't like this garment, and I think I kind of mentioned it already in my Everything I Knit in 2023 video, and it's the yarn. So the yarn that is suggested and used in the pattern sample is Luxor Mercerized Cotton by BC Garn. And when I had been accepted into the test group, I had considered looking into purchasing that yarn because I always wanted to try BC Garn, but I was worried it wouldn't get here in time. And I went to Michael's and I saw there's the Capri Eco Cotton, which is 100% cotton. It's not mercerized cotton, but it was 100% cotton and a similar weight of yarn. So I thought maybe I'll just give it a try. But that was a big mistake. I find that the cotton, I really like this shade, but I find that the 100% cotton, it's very stiff, which is not the best for a top that is meant to have negative ease. And it also has a lot of weight to it, which doesn't really work either for something with such thin straps like this. So I realized that I just don't really like 100% cotton, especially at DK weight or higher yarn for summer tops. Just don't think it's that suitable. I kind of thought that with it being a cotton plant-based yarn that it would be pretty breathable, but it is very thick and heavy, so I don't really wear it that much. I also think that I maybe did a little bit too much waist shaping. As I mentioned, I have a pretty straight torso frame, and so I was contemplating not putting in this waist shaping, but when I was looking at how the top fit, I did want it to be pretty form-fitting even at the waist, so I did do a little bit of waist shaping as the pattern indicates. So there are instructions for that. It's very nice that that is included, but because it is 100% cotton, it's so stiff, I find it's really hard to get this top over my shoulders. I can't get it on from the bottom up. Like if I were to step through it and pull it up, it doesn't fit around my hips, so I have to go over my shoulders. And around my shoulders, this point right here at the bottom, it's really hard to get on. When I first did the I-cord bind off, which is what you're supposed to do in the pattern, so I did an Icelandic bind off, which is a lot stretchier. So it does fit over my shoulders, but it is still a pretty tight squeeze to get it on. When I do wear this top, I really do like how it fits. I do really like wearing it with jeans, but it's just not the most comfortable experience. I would knit this top again because I do really like the stitch pattern. I really like the fit. I like Emma's pattern writing style, but I would maybe knit it at a tighter gauge, try and modify it, or maybe if Emma were to come out with a lighter gauge version, like a sport weight or even fingering weight, I would totally knit that with, again, a more bouncier merino yarn. My next summer knit flop is the Cloud Bralette by Ula Knitwear. This is a project that I knit last year in 2023, and I knit the size A. The pattern is written according to the cup size, and I used Sandnes Duo, I believe the name is, but I forget the shade name, so I'll put it down below, or I'm going to be linking all of my Ravelry projects below as well. And for this, there's two reasons why I don't really like this project. The first is just the concept of a knitted bralette. For some reason, I thought that I would really wear knitted bralettes a lot, but I find that it doesn't have a ton of coverage. It's just one layer of stockinette. So it doesn't really have a lot of coverage, and obviously everyone can wear whatever they want, but for me personally, I would prefer to still have either like a strapless bra or like covers, like nipple covers underneath when I wear this bralette, which kind of defeats the purpose of wearing it because you don't really have to do that with store-bought or like commercial bralettes. So yeah, I find that it's not that practical because I'm always wearing another layer underneath this already very tiny layer. So that's the first thing. And then the second is just the way that it fits, or just the knitting process, I guess. I found that with the way that the pattern is written for at least the A cup, you first, or maybe I should get into how you knit the bralette first to kind of give a bit more context. So you first knit this garter panel, and that is flipped on its side. So it's just this wide, and you're knitting a very long panel. Then you knit it together, and then that becomes the band at the bottom, which I think is a very cool concept because garter stitch is pretty stretchy. So it fits really well at the underbust. But then after that, you pick up stitches all the way around, and then you start knitting from the bottom up, the bralette. And I found that the way that the pattern is written right now, for the A cup, it would be more like a crop top rather than a bralette. I had to do a lot of modifications to still make this panel pretty narrow, where it fits more like a bralette and wouldn't be a top. Because of the instructions, the increases here, it just would end up making the bralette a lot longer and taller than what it is right now. And at that point, I feel like it's more like a crop top than a bralette. So I found that I had to do a lot of frogging and modifications to it. So I didn't have the best time knitting it either, but I do really like the way that it looks. But I just had a bit of a struggle with the pattern. And now that I finish it, I do like how it looks like this, but in terms of practicality, this is just in general, not the cloud bralette, but I just don't know if I see myself knitting another knit bra or bralette in the future. And the next two flops are both designs by My Favorite Things knitwear. So I'll start with the one that I knit first. This is the Camisole number 6, and I knit this in, I already forgot if I mentioned, I knit this in 2022, and I use Lion Brand Hand Dyed Heaven. I am forgetting the shade name, but I use that, which is a 100% nylon yarn, which is a composition that I hadn't worked with before. It's very soft, has really nice drape. It's not as heavy as cotton, but it's not as bouncy as merino. So it is a very interesting construction. I thought it could work really well for a summer garment, and I do think it does. It's very cool to the touch, but I don't like the variegated yarn. So I actually used this yarn in another project before this one, and I made a really dumb mistake, which is why I ended up doing this camisole design. It was one of the Jessie made ribbed tanks. I can't remember the name right now, but it was one of those tops, and it was knit from the bottom up. And so I thought, because I didn't have a lot of yarn, I was thinking of doing a middle up modification through Judy's Magic cast on. Like, I'd cast on the stitches right at the underarm, and then work the neckline shaping, and then after that I would pick up those stitches that I put on hold through that cast on, and then knit the rib the other direction. And I don't know if you can do this. If you know how to do a provisional cast on or Judy's Magic cast on in rib and then work the other direction, and you know how to make that work, I'd love to know, because I could not make it work. I had knit the whole top part of the neckline shaping, and then when I went to pick up the stitches from the cast on, the rib pattern doesn't line up the other direction. I could not figure out how to make it line up without it being offset. So I ended up having to frog all of that progress, and then I chose the camisole number 6 because this one is constructed from the top down. You work all of the individual triangle, I guess, panels like this for the front and the backs, and then you join them and then join it all together in the round, and then you work down. So that's why I knit this camisole. And the reason why I don't really like this camisole and I don't really wear it is first because of the yarn itself. I realized that I'm not really a variegated person. I don't really like variegated yarn that much, at least as a garment. I feel like this would look really nice in some sort of like home decor, or like even a bag. I think this would look really cool, but in terms of a garment on my body, I realized that I don't really like variegated yarn. And the second reason why I don't really like this project is because of the V neckline. I realized that I don't really like V necklines, especially in tanks, on myself very much. I recognize that I am wearing a dress with a V neckline, so it's not like a hard and fast rule. I guess I just realize now that I have to take a more critical look at the design and realize if it's something that I'm actually going to wear, because a V neckline like this I don't wear for some weird reason. I just don't like the silhouette. And it's kind of like that at the back too. So I find that I just don't really reach for this top very much, but I do really like how it looks, and it is a really comfortable yarn. So I might consider either donating it or maybe see if anyone wants to make a trade or something. But yeah, this is another flop. And then the next one is my Camisole No. 9 by My Favorite Things Knitwear as well. And this one I knit in 2023, and I knit a size extra small. I think at this point I had started podcasting, so I have some videos talking about the process of knitting this. So it's an extra small on size 3.0 millimeter needles, and I used Premier wool-free sock yarn, which is a synthetic yarn. It's, I believe, 93% acrylic, 7% PBT, which is elastic. So the top is really stretchy. I think that's great for this top because it has negative ease. And to be honest, I don't really mind that this top is made out of a synthetic fiber. I thought that it would bother me a little bit more, but it's not that bad. The reason why I actually don't wear this top is because of the fit. So I find that the armholes here, I feel like they look pretty deep, like when just holding it up like this as a flat lay, but when I wear it, I find that it's quite high up in my armpit, and it sounds so weird to say, but I really don't like the wool like so close up in my armpit. I find that it's a little bit uncomfortable, especially in warmer weather. So I just find this is a little bit uncomfortable right here. And I find as well that the top is a little bit too cropped, and that is my own doing as well. I didn't have a lot of yarn, so this is kind of the length that it was at, but I think that with a top with negative ease like this, I wish that it was about maybe even 10 centimeters longer than this, so it could be tucked into all of my bottoms, like my pants or my skirts, trousers. So it's also just like an awkward length because the rib here kind of ends where my waistband is, and so there's rib right next to the waistband, and I don't know, I just don't really like that fit and silhouette either, so I don't really wear this top either. And I also, just as a side note, I just really didn't like how this top was constructed either. The finishing looks really nice on the right side, I would say, but it is such a pain to sew down. So this is a sewn down bind off, and you get this braided edge here, which is the cast off. So you cast off in knit stitch, and then you sew that down on the inside. But because this is such a thin gauge fabric, I found that when I sewed it down with the even fingering weight merino, it was still quite obvious, so I ended up using a sewing thread, but I didn't do a very good job. And so it just looks really messy, and it was very time consuming. So if I were to do a top with this type of silhouette again, and also that has an applied hem at the side, I would not do it like this, and I would just do a knit down bind off, or maybe even like a 1x1 rib. I don't know, I just wouldn't do this again. I didn't really like the knitting process. And those were all of my knitting flops that I wanted to chat about today. And I realized that there's quite a few that I knit last year, so it's a bit unfortunate because my most recent makes I actually don't wear that much. I don't know if I am really a summer garment knitter, or if I just haven't found the right composition and patterns for myself yet. Like sweaters, I feel like I kind of know what works well for me, like what fits, what types of yarn I like to use, but for summer garments, I don't really have that understanding yet. So it could be that, or I just don't really like summer knits. I live in Toronto, so we have all 4 seasons, and our summers are pretty hot, but I feel like they're still quite brief where I can get back to knitting and wearing like knit sweaters and cardigans and jackets quite quickly. So I feel like the window for wearing summer knits anyways is quite short. So I don't really see a need for a ton of summer garments in my wardrobe compared to if I lived in a very hot climate. So there's that. So there's still a lot of thinking to be done on what I want to do for summer knitting moving forward. But I did sit down and look at all of these flops and all the notes that I took from these flops to think about what didn't really work. And the first is the yarn choice. I need to think about the color, especially because with a tank like this, it's worn next to a lot of skin that's exposed, I guess, with it being a tank. And looking at colors and variegated yarn, like my Camisole No. 9, I don't love this red on me, and I feel like because like all of my arms are exposed, I don't know, I just don't really like it with my undertone. Same thing with variegated yarn. I realize that I don't really like variegated yarn, so I just have to be a little bit more mindful and think more about my yarn color and choice. And this also leads me to the yarn composition. I have to be a bit more mindful of that composition. I think that merino wool is going to work really well for summer garments moving forward, and I need to just steer clear or think a lot more about 100% cotton, like the Silene top, which use a thicker heavy DK weight 100% cotton. It just is not very comfortable on the body, and it doesn't create the best fit. And then in terms of fit, I really need to think more about neckline silhouettes. I realize that I don't really like deep V-necks or scoop necks on myself. So with some of these tank tops, that's kind of the main reason why I don't really wear them. I don't really like the neckline. And the second is proportion, I guess I want to call it. I realize that when a top has more negative ease, I like it to be longer so I can tuck it into different pants or skirts. But then when it has more positive ease, I don't mind when it's a bit more cropped. I just really like that length because I have a bit of a longer torso. I wear a lot of high-waisted pants, and so when something is loose, I do like that silhouette where if I have a looser top, I'll wear tighter high-waisted bottoms, but that's just like a styling thing for me. But I'm realizing that with my knit garments, I want to kind of follow that as well. So just being a bit more mindful of proportion. Like for example, it's a wrap top. The top at the bust is too loose, but then it's a little too tight at the bottom. I would say as well with my Camisole No. 6, it has a little bit more positive ease on me, and I would have liked it actually if it was a little bit more cropped. So I can always go back and make that modification, but yeah, just in general, thinking more about proportion. And finally, the third thing is process. Even though I really like a knitted garment, and I'm going to show my knit top favorites in my second installment of this series, but even then there's a lot, I think with summer knitting, there's a little bit more complicated and tedious techniques that are involved. Obviously that's a generalization, but I find that with summer tanks and tops, there's usually a lot of I-cord or double knit that can be involved, either for the straps or for the cast off, and that takes time, especially with smaller needles. So I'm realizing that with certain summer designs, I just need to think twice about certain projects before I commit to them and knit them, because if they don't fit the way that I want, or I don't use the right yarn, doing all of those techniques that take a lot of time can just be a waste of time at the end of the day. So just thinking more about how summer garments are constructed, whether or not the effort, I guess, is worth it to me, and how that will impact the final garment as well. So that was everything for my knitting flops. As I mentioned, I'm going to be doing my knitted faves, or talking about tank tops and tops that I've knit in the past that I absolutely love, that I would highly recommend, and then starting to think about what I look for in a summer garment, and as well as yarn composition. So I'm really excited for that second video as well. I think it would be good to release this flop video first. It's like a more negative critique of things that I've done and a look into the past before I start looking to the future. So that's why I decided to film it in that order, and I decided to separate it out because I think the video might be a little too long. I don't know how long I've been filming now, but if you've reached this point in the video, thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you're also starting to get excited for summer knits as well, because it's fast approaching. So yes, I think with that, I'll just say goodbye. I'll see you in that next installment of this series.